once again, everyone. So, a bit of something different today, as currently when it comes to my moveset breakdowns, I'm a little bit in an interesting place with Elden Ring, so that's kind of on hold for the moment. But I've recently been playing a decent amount of Hellish Quart, which if you've not heard of it, it is a really fun sword fighting game. Basically imagine a fighting game where the swords actually have physics and all the moves are grounded in reality, and you get a really great recipe for some good fun. And in particular, most of the new fighters that have been coming out have a distinct representation of a certain kind of fighting style within about the 1600s as being the overall, with a couple of bleed over from the late 1500s. But basically, you've got this nice little niche time period where a bunch of different styles can kind of meld and fight against each other, and a lot of the characters represent a particular kind of fighter, or even sometimes a style of fighter within an overall arcing weapon. But one of the ones that myself and my good buddy Dake of Celtic Curse Gaming, check out link to the channel in the description below, have been talking about is we both want to see a Highlander character. Reason being is that one, it would be awesome to see another basket hill out on the field, and two, it is a very interesting system that meets right in the middle of that time period, and so you could have a lot of fun with it. So today, just for a little bit of extra fun, I wanted to go over my suggestions for what I might like to see in a Highlander character being added to Hellish Quart. So for this, we're going to kind of keep it relatively simple. I'm going to just give out some particular attacks that we need to kind of fill the quota and how I recommend we show that stylistically. Because really the biggest thing that I was going through in my head when I started this is, okay, I need to differentiate a lot of it from Kalkstein, who is the other Schiavona in that case wielding character, but there's going to be a little bit of overlap since the way he uses his footwork and launches his attacks can be quite similar, as well as we need something that can also differentiate from the saber fighters, who in regards to Jacek and Barbas in particular, as well as Laszlo, have again some more overlap with some of the methodology of fencing that you'll see in this. So, all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start off with the basic stuff. So, for coming into a fight, I think it would be great if, as we do see in some manuals and depictions, we start off with the basket held in the left hand, the right hand being free. The character will then reach in, bring the feet together, and perform 2 Molonaise as their salute before taking their guard. So here would that be now from the side, they're here, 1, 2, 3, extend, then they'll take guard. Now for the guard in question that I've chosen, I decided to go with something more akin to Raworth's guard. So we're going to have, rather than even, we are a bit more back weighted. I'm going to go ahead and keep the hand on the hip for now, though you could also bring it out for the inside guard and then move it to the hip for the outside. That would just be a little bit more old style, but I think just the hand on the hip will be fine for now. Less stuff to animate. And so we're going to be a little bit more retracted, and we're going to go ahead and start in the outside guard. You could also start in the inside, doesn't really matter. So that'll look like this from the front, and then this from the side. Now, for our basic attacks, the first ones we've got to cover are going to be our in-place attacks. So we've got 4 total attack directions and then long guard. So for our initial first attack, it's just going to be disengage, cut through with Molonaise. Boom, there's my 1. Boom, there's my 1. For the 2 cut, boom, there's my 2. Boom, there's my 2. Once again, I'll show that on the other side. 1, 1, 2, 2. Nothing too crazy there. You can always just return to the middle. For our 3s and 4s, 3, and then 4. Nothing too crazy. Now then, when we add movement, we've got a couple different directions we can go. We can go forward, sideways, sideways, or backward. So for forward, all we're going to do is add a small lunge. So it's just going to be through. That's my 1 cut, my 2 cut. Nothing too crazy. For 3 cut and 4 cut. And then there's 4 cut. When it comes to sideways movement, that's where things are going to get a little bit more exciting. So for stepping out to my left, we're going to use traversal style footwork, so I'm going to move my back foot first. If at the same time I cut from my upper right opening, we're going to get a 1 that then comes back with a 2. Here's that again. 1, 2. If instead we're traversing and we cut from that direction, then we're going to go ahead and have a slightly bigger action where it's going to be instead over, down, and we're going to get a little bit more hip in it. Now the reason I'm going for this is because I wanted to differentiate, otherwise it's going to be, I think, too tight of a moveset. So I figure if we are going to be doing an attack from the direction we're stepping, let's cover and then put a little bit more of the shoulder into it, just for some funsies. Then other side, same idea. If I am stepping in the direction I'm cutting, 1, no problem. 1, nice and tight and quick. But if I'm cutting from the direction that I'm stepping toward, then we're going to get a traversal into St. George, and then coming down with a nice medium. Here's that again. 1, 2. And that could be something that can catch quite well, as certainly this is a move that I use with most of the saber fighters. Someone's coming in, step out to the side to catch it high, and use that as part of it in my return attack. Versus on the other side, same idea, except I'm covering kind of up on this line before I bring that cut back down, which could take a hand or things along those lines. Now, when it comes to backward motion, we're going to have something relatively straightforward. So if I, oh wait, we got to do from below. So if I step out to the side with a cut, in this case my 3 cut, we're going to go ahead and move the front foot first. Boom, boom, which is a combo straight out of both Page and Ferdinand. So here's that again. 1, 2. I'm just backing outside guard. If we're moving the other way, it's going to be kind of same idea. It's going to be 3, 4. So I move, sorry, 4, 4, 1 is what I actually meant, but I was thinking in terms of music. So outer foot, back foot. Just return to guard. I'll show those from the side real quick just because it is going to be a side-on game. So here's that again. So I'm using my 3 cut. 1, 2. I'm just back in the guard. There's that again. 1, 2. Then the other way. 3, 4. 3, 4. No problem. Nothing too crazy, not a lot of reach on these, which is kind of going to be what I think will set apart the character compared to others. Won't have as much overall reach, but a tighter overall move set. So kind of this ball of defense sitting right in front. A little bit in the somewhat lacking in mobility, at least in regards to their initial just basic attacks, but we'll make up for that with the dash attacks. So now let's talk about backwards. So for backwards, we've got 2 main actions. There is actually retreating with a cut, in which case we're just going to use a small 1. In fact, I may even not put a Molinet on that. That might just be boom and just back to guard. In fact, I like that a little better. So boom, just a little tip out there to get them scared. Same idea if you go from the other side. Just a little extension. Nothing too crazy. If we do a slip, meanwhile, for the slip in particular, I really want to see a crisp slip. So if no attack, it'll be just bringing up nice and upright and moving up to guard the head. Slip. If, however, we throw an attack off of that slip, it'll be nice and outright, then back to guard. So overall, nothing too crazy. Now, let's talk about long guard before I get into the dash attack ideas. So we've got all the planes of movement, we got most of all the attacks. When it comes to long guard, what I want to see is some point work would be really great, but I also want to see something wherein we can cut out of that long guard more efficiently. So what I mean by this is it's meant to be forcing the blade, which is definitely something that you see in a couple of backsword sources. So the idea here being, when I go out in the long guard, rather than being relatively tight to me, we're just going to extend from wherever we are. Just out here or out here. And I'll talk about an alternative idea I have for this as well. If I push downward, rather than doing kind of this flicking expulsion, will have a beat attack. So beat, then you could fill it with a point, or alternatively, beat, then you could fill it with a point. So nice and straightforward on those. In regards to cuts out of them, if we go into long guard, then use lateral movement, then we'll see some cuts. So for this, we're going to use traversal footwork to cover a lot of distance. So the idea would be I go into my outside, and then I'm going to go ahead and move to my right side. So we're going to see a gathered cut with a nice string. Here's that again. In guard, long guard, gathered cuts. Then alternatively on the other side, I go into long guard. For this one, we're going to go ahead and have an even bigger motion. So it's going to be a nice 1-2, where we're going to go ahead and traverse past the person. So the idea here would be, and that'd be the full combo, you could also just do the one, but I'm out, I'm going to step up, and then past. So I'm very much moving away from the line on this side. That would be a cut to the arm, then followed by a cut to the face. These are my ideas, at least. I want to avoid trying to have any sort of cavalry guard here, just because I'm not really a big fan of it, and it's already done a lot, I think. Now, some other ideas for the long guard could also be going into either a hanging guard, which could then lead to a bunch of fun things, but I don't know if that necessarily fits as much as it. Depending upon who they're fighting, it might open them up too much. Alternatively, we could also see long guard be something more akin to moving into the spadroon guard or half circle guard, and that would certainly lead to some very different sort of point work, but you could also probably make that just a flat attack. So for example, if I go into long guard, maybe we could make it so rather than advancing with it, it's just they come here, then they have a cavazione style, well, disengage style action just like Kalkstein does, but that might be a little bit too similar. It would be cool to see though. I certainly like the idea of beat attacks though. You know, nice extend, beat, thrust, just for a little bit of differentiation as opposed to having the expulsion. Now, when it comes to the dash attacks, that's where I want to put a change in there. So within, as I've talked about before, we often see the older style, which is what we've mostly been sticking to, and then regimental style. And for regimental style, whenever that's going to have a lot more spring to it. I think it'd be great if on the dash attacks we saw more of that. So fourth idea at this point, for long guard would actually be going into medium, and maybe this could lead into more of the dash attacks wherein we see more springy style footwork, maybe even some feints or things along those lines. So the idea there being it would feint, then cut outside, or alternatively feint, then cut inside, both of which would be pretty fun. Or, and this would be directly out of Ferdinand, would be if I do a dash attack, it could be parry, cut, traverse off, which would be his assaults 1 and 2. So that could be quite fun. The idea of dashing forward, and rather than it being a dash attack, it's a dash parry to cut. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. Let me know your thoughts. Now, dashing to the side and things like that, it all would pretty much be the same idea. It'd just be wider lateral movement. But for the forward especially, I really like the idea of turning that into a dash forward parry and seeing what you can get off of that. Now for the parries themselves, they'd all be pretty straightforward. It would just be inside, outside, and St. George. As well as, of course, inside half hanger, outside half hanger. And certainly off of some of the cuts, you know, I parry inside half hanger, I can turn over for 1, etc. That'll all flow the way it does pretty much with all the other characters. And then, of course, following the delivering of a hit, it'd be the normal animations. Maybe we even see the return to the shoulder, something along those lines, something fun. But either way, these are just my suggestions. I was just kind of putting my brain to the task and saying, hey, if I were to design a moveset and I got to tick these boxes, which ones do I think I would want to put in there to make it look unique in comparison to the other fighters? And I think I've done a decent job. Let me know your thoughts, as I don't expect Cobalt to ever see this, though it'd be pretty cool if he did. Regardless of whether or not you use my suggestions, please, please, please put a Highlander character in there. It would be absolutely perfect for the game. But either way, though, let me know what you think, and thank you very, very much for watching. We'll go over some other potential movesets another time.